morning there again. I said that we are going to be doing a few other videos on some confusing topics, so this is going to be the second one. And we're just going to deal with a little short video to try to clear up something that seems to be confusing among Christians again. I don't know why, but it does seem to be that way. And so we're going to deal with this anything. Are there different races of people? The word race is being tossed around a lot in the political arena, election stuff. They're talking about different races. So we're going to see, are there different races of people? And we're going to go to Genesis and try to just give you straightforward scripture about this particular subject of races. So we're going to go to Genesis and we're going to read here in Genesis. So we're going to go to Genesis chapter 1, verse 26 to 28. We'll read that. And then we'll read verse 3, chapter 3, verse 20, and trying to make a point about there. Are there different races of human beings? Okay, in Genesis 1:26 it said, and God said, let us make man in our image, after our likeness, and let them have dominion over the fish of the sea, and over the fowl of the air, and over the cattle, and over all the earth, and over every creeping thing that creepeth upon the earth. So God created man in his image. In the image of God created he him, male and female created he them. And God blessed them, and God said unto them, be fruitful and multiply, and replenish the earth, and subdue it, and have dominion over the fish of the sea, and over the fowl of the air, and over every living thing that moveth upon the earth. So we see right here in this verse, it plainly said that God created the man and the woman in his image, and he told them to be fruitful and multiply, which meant God knew it was going to get a lot more of human beings when he made these two. So that's obvious. To replenish the earth is the idea of making more human beings like them. Now, we'll just read 3 verse 30, just for a reference back to 3 verse 20, Genesis 3:20. Just one verse. And Adam called his wife name Eve because she was the mother of all living. That all living term is very important because it's plain to let you know that Eve is the woman that all human beings come from that point on. She's the mother of all living human beings. So I wanted to make that point there. Now we'll go read another verse that connects to this idea, that same idea that Paul speaks of over in Acts. So we go to Acts chapter 17, we see Paul saying something here on Mars Hill. My wife's going to read those verses. Like 17:24 through 29.
God that made the world and all things therein, seeing that he is Lord of heaven and earth, dwelleth not in temples made with hands, neither is worshipped with men's hands, as though he made anything, seeing he giveth all to all life and breath and all things, and hath made of one blood all nations of men, for to dwell on all the face of the earth, and hath determined the times before appointed, and the bounds of their habitation, that they should seek the Lord, if haply they might feel after him, and find him, though he be not far from every one of us. For him we live, for in him we live and move and have our being, as certain also of your own poets have said, if we are also his offspring. For as much then as we are the offspring of God, we ought not to think that the Godhead is like unto gold or silver or stone graven by art and man's device.
And we see Paul discussing here in Mars Hill about these people who worship an unknown God. So he got into explaining to them what the real God was. Well, within that context, he's going down through here. He makes the point in verse 26, and had made of one blood all nations of men that dwell on the face of the earth. Now, Paul plainly said, of one blood, all human beings come up on the earth. All human beings are on this earth through one bloodline on one blood. Now that's really a reference back to Adam and Eve. Because of one blood, he made all nations. Now notice he said nations, not races. Nations of people. And he makes the same kind of point when you get over here in verse 28, when he said, for we live, move, and have our being. It's certain also you're supposed to have said, for we are all his offsprings. We are all offsprings of God. So he makes that point there in 28 and 29 that we're offsprings of God. So every human being, Paul is saying to these Greeks and non-Jewish people that everyone is the offspring of the God that he is explaining to them. So these two passages is really significant. There's plenty of other places in the Bible that bears the same thing out. That to plainly tell you that if you are a believer in Jesus Christ, you believe God of the Bible, that every human being come from Adam and Eve, the exact same two people. So every human being is of God through those two. Which plainly tell me there's no such thing as different races of people. It's only one race, the human race. All offspring of God through Adam and Eve. So it's no such thing as different races of human beings on this planet. And that's a problem because people want to talk about black race, white race, the Chinese race. That is not true. There's no such thing as different races of humans. There's only one human race. Come from the one man and one woman, Adam and Eve, made in the image of God. No other races. It's just one human race. And that's the problem. People think that it's different races of people and therefore we are different. We're not different. We all made in the image of God. We all come from the same man and same woman, and we all part of the one human race. Matter of fact, I give you a fact. There's no such thing as the word race is never used to refer to human beings in the entire Bible. It's not ever, a group of people are never called a race of people by God. The only time you find the word race is talking about an athletic event. It's not, the word race is never found in the scripture. It's nationality, a nation, a nationality, are cultures, but never race. So there's only one human race. So to say it's different races of people is a mistake, and to say that we are different, human beings are different. No, we have different cultures. We come from different places in the world. We may have different skin colors, but we all are the exact same human race. So there's no such thing as races. So the political people talking about black race, white race, and so-called playing the race card, and Christians talking about stay with your own kind. That's just silly. It's only one kind, humankind. When it comes to human beings, there's only one. The proof is Adam and Eve is the parent of every human being. So Christians should never be talking about your own kind or different races. That does not exist. It's you the divide. It's a bunch of junk. It's not in the scriptures. It cannot be proven. These verses prove that every human being comes from the exact same place. So there's no such thing as races. And I don't think we have to go any place else to prove that it's only one human race. Genesis and Acts 17 prove everybody comes from the exact same two human beings, the same place, Adam and Eve, which were created in the image of God, which makes up all in the image of God. So forget this race junk that people are trying to tell you. Stay with your own kind, ain't but one kind. Humankind, human being. So by answering that, I really deal with the second part of what I was going to talk about. Explains only one race. So the question becomes, can there be so-called interracial marriage? Then the answer is absolutely no. You can't have interracial marriage simply because you don't have different races of people. So there's no such thing as a interracial marriage. That's just completely false, can never be true, because how are you going to be interracial marriage when you're all humans? There's only one human race. So there's no such thing. People talking about, I don't believe in interracial marriage. It don't exist. So you can't believe in something that's not real. So there's no such thing as interracial marriage. Different nationalities or different cultures can marry, but there's no such thing as interracial marriage because there's only one human race. So a person say, I'm against interracial marriage, that's just dumb. You can't be against something that don't exist. Races don't exist. So there's no such thing as interracial marriage. So we see that's stuff of race disappears if you understand the scripture. You see, it's not true, and no person and no God should ever be talking that stuff out their mouth. I understand lost people don't see it the same way, but Christians are just being dumb, talking about different races and stay with your own kind. Ain't but one kind, humankind. God, they made but one man and one woman, and we all got here that way. So the question really becomes then this idea of being unequally yoked together. People throw that out there to try to say stay with your own kind. The Bible says don't be unequally yoked together. Well, it's only one way to be unequally yoked together, and that's with unbelievers. And I'm explain a little bit more about that before we finish up this here, those video we're doing. But I want to make another point about this so-called interracial marriage of not being the same kind. Now, Acts chapter 17, Paul says everybody of one blood. That God that made all nations of the earth of one blood. Now, in America, the American country itself, the American military, all you got to do is open your eyes and look around. The American military proved this verse, Acts chapter 17, better than anything else in the world. Our military proved what Paul said is true just on an earthly level. Everywhere the American military men have been stationed, every place in the world they ever been stationed for any length of time, they have left babies behind. Healthy babies by the women of those countries. Every place they've been. Whether they were stationed in China for a while, or whether they were in Japan, or in Vietnam, or Korea, every place the American soldiers have been for any length of time, they have left healthy babies behind by the women of those countries. Now, if we weren't the same kind, how could they leave healthy babies behind? Which proves it's all of one blood. They're all human beings, all come from the same place. You can't leave healthy children behind if you're not the same kind of people, or if you're different races and ain't the same. So the American military have proven that throughout the centuries, that everywhere they go, they not over those countries talking about, I need to stay with my kind. If there's a woman there, he's a man, that's his kind. And they done proved it by leaving babies behind, marrying these women, bringing them back to America. So that's just ridiculous to offer Christians, anybody to argue that human beings are not the same kind, or they different races, they're different nations, nationalities, cultures. As a matter of fact, when God talks about human beings in the Bible, he only speaks in two terms about them on the spiritual level or in general. He called them either God's people or not God's people. Jew, the Gentile was the term they used in the Old Testament in Jesus' time, referred to those that belong to God and those that didn't belong to God. Everyone that was not considered a Jew of God's people was considered a Gentile, non-God's people, which was Greeks and Romans, Egyptians, there, all the rest of it. So God speaks the idea of lost and saved. Only two groups he doesn't in, those that belong to me and those that don't. On earthly level, yes, we have culture, we have nationality, but we don't have races. No races. So that is the improper misinterpretation of Scripture. So we take care of that. That should clear up this idea of different races or different kinds of human beings. One kind of all of one blood created into God. So that should go away. Don't have to run all over the Bible to prove that. So we just proved that. Now I'll go back to this idea of being unequally yoked together. Now I'll read the verse 2 Corinthians 6:14, because this is what a lot of people have run to try to say that you should always stay with your own kind idea. And for years I heard that quoted as just keep so-called races separate. But when you read what's being said here in 1 Corinthians 6:14, we'll see Paul is in 2 Corinthians 6:14, Paul is talking about something straightforward. We'll pick up in 6:14. And we'll read down through a little bit further that. And we'll start in 14. 2 Corinthians 6:14. He said, be you not unequally yoked together with unbelievers. The key to understanding everything he say is unbelievers. He tell you what he's talking about. Be not unequally yoked together. How can you be unequally yoked together? A believer with an unbeliever. That's what he's talking about. He said, for what fellowship had righteousness with unrighteousness? And what communion had light with darkness? He's talking about lost and saved here. And what concord has Christ with Belial? People that belong to Jesus, but people that don't belong to Jesus, which the Bible plainly teach belong to the devil. And what part is he that believeth with an infidel? A believer with an unbeliever. And what agreement has the temple of God with idols? For you are the temple of the living God. As God has said, I will dwell in them and walk in them, and I will be their God, and they shall be my people. Wherefore, come out from among them, and be you separate, said the Lord, and touch not the unclean thing, and I will receive you. So we see plainly, this is talking about lost and saved. Unequally yoked is talking about people that belong to God should be marrying and hooking up and being in close communion and fellowship with people that don't believe. Have nothing to do with so-called race, which don't exist, or nationalities. It's all about lost and saved. So that's the unequally yoked part. So it's only two ways you can really be unequally yoked together. It's from the biblical standpoint. It's only two ways that human beings are unequally yoked together. If a lost person is marrying a saved person, or a saved person marrying a lost person, or if you get involved in this homosexual mess, men marrying men, and women marrying women, that is unequally yoked together, because that's not natural. So those are really the only two ways that you can be yoked together. There's no other way you can be yoked together. Laws with saved, that's unequally yoked, or the homosexual mess, unnatural sexual desires being fulfilled, so-called women marrying women and men marrying men. That stuff is unequally yoked. But it has nothing to do with nationality, skin color, all that kind of junk that people have been throwing out there for years, for centuries, teaching in churches, making up lies that ain't never been true, and using this verse to try to support that lie. Don't be yoked together. And if you're black and white, you can't get married. That's just a bunch of lies, been lied from the beginning, ain't never been true. So we see it's only one race. Any Christian talking any of this junk don't know their Bible. The race is never used to talk about human beings whatsoever in the scriptures ever. God only deals in two groups, lost and saved, when he talk in general about humans as a whole. And every human being come from Adam and Eve and made in the image of God through them. And equally important in God's eyes. That's why John 3:16 become, though obviously a great verse. For God so loved the world that whosoever, and undo with what you look like where you come from, whosoever believe in him should not perish forever, Lord, that's the life. So this should clear up this junk about race and stand with your own kind and don't be yoked together. That's a bunch of junk. God ain't never said it. No such thing as racist. No one can ever prove it. Anybody talking that junk is not talking from Jesus' standpoint of what the Bible teaches. They're talking from their own prejudice, their own preferences, their own bad teachings, or whatever it might be. It's not coming from God. So I wanted to clear up that. There's only one race. Now, if we understood that like God said it, then that love thy neighbor as thyself become easy to do. Because we don't think we're better than anybody else because we all come from God. The problem is we don't see human beings that the same and equal and all made in the image of God and just as good as us. Then we want to try to separate my color better than that color, my group better than that. See, that's idiotic thinking for a Christian especially. So we understood everybody come from God. We all the same. Then we better be better on our way to treating them like God said, made in the image of God, just like we are, just like I am, and we all would get along better. So not understanding. Now America needs to stop this race mess. We supposed to be what's good for every human being in America, and we ain't worried about so-called what they look like. America ain't never supposed to be about races or people. It's supposed to be about people coming together to be Americans and working as Americans. If Christians came together as human beings and work together to please God, all this junk go away or stand separate because we look different or we come from different places. So that's what I wanted to give you. In God, that stuff disappears. Real Christians don't have no problem with where a person comes from, what they look like, what their skin color is. It's only about whether they're right or wrong or doing what God told them to do, or do they believe in Jesus or don't believe in Jesus. That's the only basis we deal with people on. So that's what I want to give you. So that's the one that I wanted to do. No such thing as racist. Never have been, never will be. And so forget that. You can't be yoked together with another human being. Long as it's a male and female, you can never be yoked together. So that's what I want to give you. So that's this little video. We'll be uploading some more. All these things are meant to be helpful to you. I'm giving you a straightforward scripture that you don't have to run all over the Bible to understand what's going on. So we'll be loading up some more about straightforward things on things I think are confusing. So that's it. If you find this helpful, you don't agree with some of it, you can always comment on my page below. So leave me a little message. I'll get back with you if I think it's necessary and you want to talk to me, that's fine. I'll do that for anybody. So that's it. We'll look forward to the next one we'll upload.